Hey, good evening, everybody. How are you? This is Freddie Ewan, two-time GM of the Year, Pantheon Cup champion, host of that fantasy football show with Freddie Ewan, the fantasy football god, Doctor Podcast, or even Freddy Krueger. I think like once every 2 or 3 years, I get that Freddy Krueger, and I always know that the guy who calls me that is probably a really PG rated guy. Um, but that's great. We need PG people in this world. Anyway, it's September 23rd, 2024. I hope everyone had a great weekend. It was an exciting weekend in the NFL. 4-1 the last 2 weeks in my fantasy football leagues. Looks like I'm going to finish 1-4 this time around, which is tough sledding. You have weeks like those, but and just you gotta pick up the pieces and move on to the next week. We are going to talk about some things that happened over the weekend. 5 things that happened in fantasy football this weekend that we have every Monday. And I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen really quickly. Give me just 1 second here. Let me see if I can do this. And here we are. Oh, that's not what I was looking for. Give me 1 second. That's a little too PG. 5 things we learned in fantasy football this week. Let's start out with Garrett Wilson. The New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers came and played. Aaron Rodgers played fantastic on Thursday. They were playing the Patriots. Don't mind, but Rodgers played fantastic, threw 2 touchdowns. Garrett Wilson, Garrett Wilson was a late first, early second round pick. Garrett Wilson owners have been a little bit nervous over him. He had 9 targets, only 5 receptions, 33 yards. He did score a touchdown, so I don't think Wilson played that bad. He's got a 29% target share. It's going to take a little time, I think, for Rodgers and Wilson to click, but I think once they start clicking, they're going to be a really good tandem and they're going to have a lot of good games together. Al Lazard has been getting into the mix a lot. He had 3 targets, 3 receptions, 48 yards, and a touchdown. And Rodgers and Lazard played with each other in Green Bay. They had a great connection, and it takes time between a quarterback and a wide receiver to build up. I know that Garrett Wilson owners are a little bit nervous, but he is, he's one of those guys that sell high, buy low. I would buy Garrett Wilson right now, and if you are a Garrett Wilson owner, hold on to him because I think he is going to do good things very, very soon. The next guy we're going to talk about, how about this guy? Being a Philadelphia Eagles fan, I had the hopes that the Eagles were going to bring over Saquon and do what the 49ers did with CMC. And so far so good. It's looked phenomenal. Barkley is having an amazing year. Finally behind an offensive line that can block for him. And yesterday was an ugly game. The Eagles made some bad play calls, bad decisions. The defense played great. New Orleans scored 40 points the last 2 games, and Philadelphia defense really played really, really good. Barkley, 17 carries, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had 4 receptions on 4 targets for only 9 yards. But if you're in a PPR, half point PPR league, that makes it really nice for you too. Guys, are just amazing. 65-yard run. One thing that is taking away from is if you are a Jalen Hurts owner, I think you should be really worried right now about Barkley's impact on the Philadelphia Eagles and what it is doing for Jalen Hurts fantasy stock. Hurts has not scored any rushing touchdowns. Throws 0 touchdowns yesterday. He threw an interception. He was sacked 4 times. Hurts is not playing extraordinary great sometimes, and he is not getting those opportunities. They've had a couple tush push opportunities that have not worked out. Barkley's going to get a lot of goal line work. I think Hurts is still going to be Hurts, but is he going to be that #1 quarterback guy that you can count on week in and week out to get you fantasy points? I don't think that's the case. Might turn around a little bit with AJ Brown gets back and they really have a full team. How about Dallas Goedert yesterday too? I mean, had the best overall game as a tight end. Best tight end game yesterday, 10 receptions, 170 yards. Should have had that touchdown, but slowed down at the end. But just an amazing game by Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert fans were very happy. Saquon Barkley is the running back number one right now, and you are extremely happy if you are a Saquon owner. Hope I said that right, Billy. Next guy that we're going to talk about, Rashee Rice. Boy, I mean, Rashee Rice, there was so much worries about drafting him due to the fact that he had some off-field issues and he was going very late in drafts behind a lot of wide receivers. I've seen him go in the fifth, sixth, seventh round because, people were thinking he was going to get suspended for 4 or 8 games. He ends up not getting suspended. And I mean, the guy has just he's been phenomenal. He is by far, first and foremost, he is Patrick Mahomes' number one target. 12 receptions yesterday, 110 yards, 14 targets and a touchdown. He is the number 2 wide receiver right now in the NFL behind Malik Neighbors. This guy's been, absolutely amazing. Travis Kelce, God, 2 years ago, a year ago, Kelce was the guy. If you had Kelce on your fantasy team, you put him in that tight end spot. He was like the cheat code and far better than who the next tight end was. And now that's really not the case. Kelsey's still going to do some things in tight end. He's going to, he's going to get better. He's going to score some touchdowns. He's going to get a lot of red zone targets, etc. But the days of Travis Kelce just taking over a game looks like they are over. And it shows just way the Andy Reid is play calling, the whole 9 yards. This is the way Patrick Mahomes is throwing the ball. He is looking for Rice time and time again. Xavier Worthy had a great first game, hasn't done much, but I think as the season progresses, you're going to see Worthy get a couple big hits, a couple big home run plays from Travis Kelce. But right now, Rice is the man. Short yardage, long yardage. Travis Kelce, on the other hand, like I said, you still got to start the guy because he's Travis Kelce. He's on the Chiefs team, which scores a lot, and tight end is not doing that well right now. But no one is putting a big emphasis on the tight end position right now, and they shouldn't be because it's just it seems like a whole different game now, and really unfortunate for Travis Kelce owners, but that's just the way of the world and the way that it is. Next thing that we are going to talk about. Last week everyone was saying, if you had a Carolina Panther on your team, you were dropping them. Carolina Panthers were awful the first 2 weeks with Bryce Young. Could not score any points, could not get any yards. They put in the Red Rocket, Andy Dalton, and go on the road to play a tough defense with the Oakland Raiders. A lot of teams and GMs streaming Oakland as their defense this week against the Panthers. I know I did that in a couple leagues. And got their butts kicked. Andy Dalton, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns. He is a waiver wire, big pickup as a quarterback right now with the way he played this week. Chuba Hubbard, I'm sure, was on the bench for practically every team. 21 carries, 114 yards, played a great game. Deontay Johnson, I don't think anyone had been cutting Deontay, but I'm sure, he was spending a lot of time on the bench for a lot of GMs. 8 receptions, 14 targets, 122 yards, and a touchdown. Chuba Hubbard also, had 5 receptions, off 5 targets, and a touchdown. Great game by those two. Xavier Leggett got involved a little bit. He had 3 targets for 42 yards. Thielen played a little good. He got 5 targets, but I think, if Andy Dalton is a good quarterback, and he's always been a very good quarterback, there's fantasy relevance here in Carolina. I think Deontay Johnson, first and foremost, is the guy that you got to start playing a lot more and paying attention to. We'll see what happens with Hubbard, and Brooks is going to be back pretty soon, I think, and see exactly what happens with that whole situation. Miles Sanders is still in the mix. He scored a running touchdown yesterday. But this is going to be Hubbard's show to lose at running back. I think Brooks is going to get all right by the end of the year and make some fantasy relevance. But right now I think you got to start Deontay Johnson wherever you go. I think if you're a quarterback streaming team or a quarterback needy team, that Andy Dalton is worth taking a look at in the waiver wire as well. And then last but not least, probably the most important is Tua. Big fantasy relevance is the Miami Dolphins with how many fantasy players they have on their team. The Dolphins are awful when Tua is not there. The Dolphins are just absolutely awful. They were awful yesterday. There was disappointing numbers from everyone. And let me just bring this up really quick and just go over the stats with the Miami Dolphins because it was just it was a sad day in Miami. I know they had to go on the road, and I know that they had to play in a tough environment in Seattle. But a chain who just has been lights out the first two games, 11 carries, 30 yards, 2.7 average. He had three receptions off five targets for 28 yards. Tyreek Hill was targeted five times, three receptions, only 40 yards. Jalen Waddle, who's been really doing nothing, even went to five targets, four receptions, 26 yards. This is Skylar Thompson got hurt. Tim Boyle they put in. Tim Boyle was not that much better. I don't know what they're going to do next week, if they're going to bring another quarterback in and try to get them going. But they need Tua back big time. And fantasy football teams, I think that Tyreek Hill is the best wide receiver in the league. He was voted the best player in the NFL by the NFL 100, and it's going to be a tough sledding without without Tua at quarterback. I don't know how the significance of his concussion or when he is going to come back, but they need Tua back, or these you're not going to sit these guys to Chain and Hill and Waddle, but these guys are definitely going to be downgraded a lot moving forward until they get Tua back or some other quarterback that can really get them the ball. And you saw what just happened in Carolina, where putting in the right quarterback change in Dalton can make a huge difference. Dolphins need to figure that out, and they need to figure out that with a hurry. So that is it. That's the show today. 5 things that we learned about. We are going to talk about waiver wire pickups in a couple days, probably tomorrow. 2 games tonight. 2 games on Monday Night Football tonight, which is going to be pretty exciting. The 2 games that are playing tonight is the Buffalo Bills play the Jacksonville Jaguars. Lots of fantasy relevance in that game, especially if you're a Bills owner. Um, Cook went off last week, had a great game. Jaguars don't have that great of a run defense, so look for that. Really, Jaguars have been really bad, and Christian Kirk has been nowhere to be found. Brian Thomas has been okay. Trevor Lawrence has been absolutely awful. If you have Trevor Lawrence, you shouldn't have Trevor Lawrence right now. And it's, where we're going to see from this, it's going to decide a lot of fantasy games for tonight, I'm sure, with the Bills players on the other side of it. The Commanders and the Bengals owners have not been happy. Burrow has not been doing a whole lot of great things. Chase has been doing absolutely nothing, and he was a, early first round pick for a lot of teams. I think Chase is going to come back. I think Burrow is going to be all right. I think Higgins is going to play tonight. I got Gesicki going in a couple places. I really like Gesicki. The guy's been, I picked him off all the waiver wire, and he's been a decent tight end for me at times. On the other side, the Commanders, Jaden Daniels has been give and take for a rookie. Jaden Daniels is going to get you a lot of points, I think, though. I got I'm in a fantasy league where this guy actually had Jalen Hurts, and he drafted Jaden Daniels. I had no idea what he's doing, but he's got Daniels sitting on his bench, and he's starting Hurts, and I'm still trying to figure it out. I can't figure out fantasy football players sometimes. Brian Robinson is doing pretty good as a running back in a solid running back to have. I think anyone who wants out Eckler, you need to dump him and get rid of him. Eckler has been nothing. McLaurin has been very bad too. I just traded for McLaurin in a fantasy league, and I'm hoping that he can turn it around and that him and Daniels can get a little bit of a connection there, even though I'll be rooting for the Bengals because I'm an Eagles fan. I'm sorry, Commodores or Commandos. But anyway, that's the show. I hope everyone had a great Sunday. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll be back again soon. Everyone have a great night. Thank you so much.